Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. And today we've got the awesome MIRI with us. Hi, MIRI, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, on a Monday.
I know. Well done for coming along. And thank you again for sharing your time and your story with us. It's really, really appreciated. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. So I've been living in East London for about 25 years now, and I am an artist. So I'm a vocalist, songwriter, and performer, and I also do creative facilitation.
Amazing. So, what's creative facilitation for anyone that doesn't know what that means?
Yeah, so I run songwriting workshops and I support creatively either young people who have become at risk because of their environment or certain systematic challenges, as well as working with adults as well. So sometimes I work with adults who struggle with their mental health, or previously I freelanced for organisation running music sessions in mental health wards. And I also do a lot of work with Girls Rock London, who work with adults and young people, or girls, trans and non-binary folk, and using music to take up space and make noise. So the work varies. I try to follow yeah, just follow my passion and work with organizations that are doing really special and genuine work to help others.
I love that because I've been through a lot of these challenges myself. I suffered from mental health. I was in children's
Yeah.
homes to care, brought up by my grandparents. Both my parents are deaf. So I'm really pleased to hear that you're doing a lot of work to support underrepresented and disadvantaged communities. I think that's super important. We need more education and visibility, but we also need allies. And it sounds like you're a fantastic ally, but you're also part of the LGBT community. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. And I also was diagnosed this year with autism and ADHD,
I,
and I have or I experienced PTSD as well. So
I've got that.
yeah. So
Um,
I kind of, yeah, sorry.
So it's all right. How do you find like having that diagnosis? Has that helped you? Has that kind of made you be able to navigate things better?
Yeah, I'm still learning,
Yeah.
and I've literally spent my whole life just not realizing. And I was saying to someone recently, because I grew up in the 80s when Section 28 was introduced, I I know what it feels like when something isn't right and repressed, because I didn't come out and deal with my sexuality until I was in my early 20s,
Right.
or didn't come out for the first time, I should say.
Yeah.
So I guess although it's very different, I just, when I started to come across information about autism and ADHD,
Mhm.
I started to think, oh, I relate to this. And so I started to do the research. So I kind of realized or felt, yeah, this is definitely me about 2 years ago. But then you go through the process and the assessments. And so got those, yeah, the diagnosis this year. But that's also now led me to do a lot of creative work with either neurodivergent young people and adults. Like I've started running some music workshops for a really lovely small charity, working with children and adults who are autistic or might have other disabilities.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's that I kind of look back and I'm like, oh, that's why life has felt a little extra hard. Like I always felt that there was something wrong with me and I needed to fix myself.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely, when it comes to trauma, or I guess kind of doing the work within oneself to kind of release in order to move forward and expand. But I can't do that with autism and ADHD. And that's what I realized
Okay.
with my diagnosis, that this is just me, and that's why things feel hard and I need to be kinder to myself. So I'm on that path, shall we
Oh,
say, and just learning, and yeah.
That's amazing. That's really beautiful, actually. And, you know, when we were growing up, I think it was a very much a taboo subject to be gay or trans or a lesbian or anything like that. And I think things have changed an awful lot from when we were growing up. So I totally understand that. And how have you found that accepting yourself and being yourself has kind of shaped the music and the creativity that you do? Has that made any difference?
Oh, major. Yeah, such a major difference. I mean, even just if I've over the years, written a song and it's been about a woman and that I can own that or put she in the lyrics. I would have never thought I could do that when I was little. And now I guess sometimes it can seem like, yeah, well, of course. But obviously, when we were growing up in that restrictive environment and unsafe environment, one couldn't be free. So yeah, definitely when I write and what I do as an artist, it's a platform for me to have a voice and to connect with others through what I do musically and creatively. And when I'm performing, like I do a cover of Girls Just Want to Have Fun, a little bit more of a
Yeah.
slower
Oh, yeah, yeah.
version.
Yeah.
And over the past few years, I started singing it for Bieber Henry, Nicole Smallman, Sarah Everard, and so many others who have had their lives
Yeah.
stolen away due to gender-based violence.
Yeah.
And when I've performed that, I just get sometimes a lot of people coming up to me afterwards sharing their experiences or saying, oh, I don't want to trauma dump, but this happened. And it also I ended up being invited to sing at the vigil of Zara Alina's vigil. Her
Oh,
auntie asked,
yes.
yeah, like to sing Change Is Gonna Come. And
Fingers
it
crossed.
was really deep. And yeah, this was like when was this? It maybe like it was just a few months ago. Mina Smallman was there. Her husband, the Everards, were there as well, and it was just really, really intense and
Yeah.
really sort of moving when you've been singing for these people and then
Oh,
you
yeah.
meet their parents and then you're actually in that space. But again, I feel that's the power within music, and I think that's very different to what the industry is, which is a business. And I think maybe is it an art, or I don't know, where we can be artists, make sure that we're earning, but also like have speak our truth.
Yeah, I love that as well. And it's not just about yourself, you're also supporting others and building those allies and being supportive, which I really, really love. So, like, how long have you been actively in music and entertainment? How long have you been doing that for?
Yeah, so I guess self-employed probably about, oh, maybe like 13 years or something like that. But then I first got involved in music in the 90s, maybe the late 90s, when I was a young person, and I received some interest from a music publisher.
Mm.
And although things didn't end up manifesting, thing like the head A&R who'd shown an interest in what I was doing, he then went to LA, to the LA branch, and this happens in
Yeah,
music. But I had no idea how the industry worked. But I think just having someone within that world, actually say, oh yeah, we
this is
we
it.
want to sign her, it kind of just gave me confidence and helped me to feel, oh, I could actually do this as a career.
I love
And
that.
yeah, and it was obviously such a different time where the whole the way you could achieve as an artist was you had to get signed, and you could, as far as I'm aware, like make money from selling records,
Yeah,
whereas obviously
carry
it's
that.
changed a lot.
Difference, isn't it? And did you actively have a musical education, or was it just a passion and a hobby that you've just followed through?
Yeah, I kind of so one of my siblings, my older siblings, learnt piano when we were little, and I just seemed to want to copy everything he did, and was able to start learning piano when I think I was 5. And then I stopped when I was 12, but that kind of gave me enough foundation to start writing songs. So I'm not like the best pianist. I sort of wish I would have kept it up, but I can play enough to sort of write. And I do a lot of gigs where it's just me on keys, and I just use the keys as a sort of foundation and make my voice the main instrument. So yeah.
So you don't always need a musical education to get through it. You can actually just follow your heart and do it as a hobby, and then it progresses and progresses like that. And I think that's very well.
Yeah.
What kind of challenges and barriers have you faced accessing the music industry? Obviously being from all these different groups and it's like that must be extremely difficult.
Yeah, especially with ADHD, which can feel quite chaotic, but then I feel like being autistic, in fact, one therapist once said it's almost like they balance each other out a little bit. But I guess now that I'm looking back through knowing that I have ADHD, that's been a big challenge. Sometimes being misunderstood, or maybe misunderstanding as well. And definitely I've experienced a lot of misogyny, and at the time I didn't necessarily realize it was misogyny. And again, it's through maybe the past 8 years speaking to just other artists, or there being other initiatives where people are talking out, and then it's like, oh right, yeah, this has happened to me as well, so it wasn't just in my head. So yeah, predominantly I'd probably say for myself, a lot of misogyny, and control.
I was part of the misogyny inquiry, for the House of the Parliament a couple of years back. And I did put in a little bit in there as well about how trans women also face misogyny, but in a slightly different way. So we kind of face the transphobia, and also certain people saying, well, actually, you're not a woman. So, we've got two ways of looking at it from a trans point of view, which can be extremely disheartening at times and isolating as well, because, I don't think there's that camaraderie between women as there is between men. And this is another thing that I've seen is, okay, yeah, I do see certain networks that support women and not trans and non-binary people, but it's generally a lot of the people I see in the industry, it's about themselves. And that's something I'm trying to change, is I don't want this to just be about me. I want to use a platform to highlight other people's voices and stories and educate others, which I think is really, really important. So just having that understanding and awareness is really good for male allies as well, because I don't think they understand a lot of the challenges that women actually face either.
It's true. I mean, there have been some men that I've spoken to who've really worked to be an ally, and there's some who are trying their best to be allies, but then when I've sort of shared experiences, or an experience that I've had with a man, they've sort of made excuses for him, which I realize is sort of like, oh, he probably didn't mean it in that way, which I realize is that kind of generic sort of response. So yeah, but inclusivity is just really important. And I think sadly I find that whether it's organizations or people within the industry, sometimes it can be a little bit performative. 100%. And I feel it's so important, like sharing stuff on socials, and I do it all the time. But then I think if initiatives or organizations or promoters, whoever, if they're actually making those changes, like they're actually doing the work, then we will see it, we will know it, and then they can be like, yeah, if you look at a lineup and you see, oh yeah, that's really inclusive. But sometimes it's just words, and it's just I sometimes sort of see an organization or someone on their socials, I think, oh, that's so cool, and then I do some work for that initiative, and it's just not.
I get that. I was part of Key Change, so they really push for that 50-50 gender representation. But then, like I said to them, is we need to have intersectional gender representation as well. It's all good having 50-50 lineups, but we need to have a look at the intersectional approach on that, and how many people from the LGBT community, how many of those are trans, how many of them are non-binary, And how can we figure out how many of those are neurodivergent or suffer from mental health issues? So
Yeah.
these other intersections that kind of make it harder and harder for people like us to get seen or to be visible or to get to the next steps. So what's your kind of thoughts and feelings around equality, diversity and inclusion at the moment in the music industry?
I think there are genuinely a lot of good people
Yeah,
doing genuinely good work. And I've definitely noticed maybe in the past 7 years, or when I've first started going to or being invited to some of these sort of industry
yeah,
events or summer parties,
yeah.
I've seen the changes. Um, so it is happening, and I do see good stuff happening. But I think there's still a lot of work to do, and we should never be complacent. And like you were saying as well, with um, like with transphobia and people just not, yeah, just if we're like, oh yeah, we're women and but then we're actually um alienating trans women or gender diverse folk, then
That's
then
not
we're not doing the work. It's not
exactly.
okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So what would you like to see improve in the next couple of years? If you could have your way, what things would you like to change?
I'd like to see I'd like to see more of us being given a platform and funding as well.
Funding's enough.
Um, yeah, like I've never been able to, I mean, there's still time. I will still apply for things, but yeah, so I'd love to be able to actually apply for funding to record and release new music and actually, and get it, and not have people say. And also when you think of like all the work that you've done, and or I should say for myself, all the work that I've done over the years, and I've built up my sort of CV, and there's only so much we can't do it all on our own. So I think funding, yeah, funding is really important, and just being given those platforms, and not just having, I guess, like sometimes it's like, oh, it's International Women's Day, we're gonna pick MIRI to do this, or it's
In the whole year.
like LGBT History Month. I gotta pay I can't just pay the bills like two
Right,
months out of 12. I
right.
need to pay the bills throughout the whole time. So yeah, I think just continued education, and actually, and I say for myself, everyone continuing to do the work so that we can make sure that lineups and the seats at the table are fully diverse and inclusive.
Yeah, I think we're getting there step by step. We are making progress. It's just kind of slow. So yeah, I do understand the frustration and the changes that are needed. And hopefully, the more we do these podcasts, the more people in the industry that understand what these issues and barriers are, the more changes we will see. But it's like we have to fight for those changes. They're not just going to be given to us, and which is a bit of a shame, really, because I think it should be more equal, and the equity is just not there. I think that's what it really is. So what do you think like age and cultural differences also have an impact on the range of diversity and inclusion that we see?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, I think that, I mean, I kind of, I don't look my age, but I think that if I actually went around telling people in music how old I was, I think there would be judgment. And I think it's sort of like if you get to a certain age, um, as a woman, that you're kind of seen as like, oh, well, you're not needed anymore,
Okay.
And I don't think, I mean, that's really difficult, because I've definitely found that where I am now as an artist, I could have never been here like
Right.
20 years ago. And
The songs you write
um
are completely different, right? So that lived experience
yeah,
impacts your song.
100%. And I think that along with certain other things, just I just feel like yeah, I feel a lot more me, basically. grown into myself like a fine white wine, I guess,
Yeah, you get
or
mature as you
red
get
wine.
older. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as well, like I know I was just reading, finished reading DJ
It's great.
Paulette's book, and I got to interview her for representing Featured Artists Coalition a few years ago at the Boudica Music Conference. And DJ Paulette is amazing and really inspirational. And, you know, we spoke a lot about racism within the music industry, her being a Black woman. And yeah, I think these things need to continue to be called out.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's still a lot of yeah, just people judging on age, people not allowing people to move forward because if they're a Black woman or a woman of color.
Yeah.
And yeah, so again, changes are definitely being made, but it doesn't just, it has to be consistent, you
100%.
know.
I think so. And do you think being in the music industry has had an impact on your mental health and the way you feel about yourself?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, self-esteem. Um, I also learn about rejection sensitive disorder, which if I have this correctly, people can have through having PTSD and also neurodivergent people. So it's not just like if I don't get a job or a booking, I'm like really upset. It can be really small things, like if I'm in an environment and someone's tone or how they
Yeah.
speak to me in a certain way, and then I will literally, it's so weird. Like everything just feels magnified, and I just feel really terrible. Um, but those are little moments here and there that I'm understanding, you know, why that happens and working through how I can manage that. But yeah, I mean, over the years, I remember in my 20s when I was signed to a management and I was very close to getting signed to a major. And then another artist ended up getting signed. And I mean, I look back and I'm really glad that I didn't, because I hadn't dealt with my sexuality. I don't feel I really knew I thought I knew who I was, but
Yeah.
I didn't, musically and personally. But I just remember, like just, I think that whole weekend, because I'd worked so hard and I just felt so rejected, and it just ignited a lot of other deep rooted,
Oh my.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so over the years, that's been, yeah, definitely, I've had bouts of depression, I get anxiety. And on one hand, one could be like, well, why do you do music? But it's sort of, I love what I do. And I think as well, me now knowing, having my diagnosis, me being older and sort of understanding myself a
Yes.
bit more. And I think when I was younger as well, I used to think like, oh, when I do this, or if I do this holistic therapy or that therapy, I'll sort myself out and I'll be all right. And now I realize that, yeah, I can do 12 sessions of EMDR or a type of therapy, but then 10 years later, I don't know how I'll feel or where I'll be mentally. Like, so I think, yeah, but to answer your question, yes. Yeah, it's definitely affected. But I think whatever I would do in life, knowing me now, knowing myself, I would be affected. But the music industry, I think because there's that idea of competition, and I love this quote, get rich by creation, not competition. And the music industry, it's always like, oh, am I good enough? Oh, I haven't got this funding. Oh, I didn't get this, or didn't get this booking. And does that mean I'm really bad, or I'm really, I'm not good? Oh, I should just, why am I still doing this kind of thing? And then there's a moment where, like I was doing stage managing on Saturday at Rich Mix for Loud Women. And then this fan from America who I'd never met before just came up to me, my little fluorescent jacket, and was like, oh, Miri, I'm so and so. I really love your music. Me and my wife, we listen to it all the time. We do, and I was like, oh yeah, that's why I do this.
I'm a fan, I'm a fan as well. So I love the music from me. It's
Oh,
very amazing.
thanks. Thank you.
I was also going to say, we touched on something earlier about calling out. When we say some of this stuff we should be calling out. Are you ever afraid to speak up or call out people in the industry, especially
Mm,
when you've seen something?
that's yeah, that's a really good question. I think that what I've learned now is that so I think because there are initiatives like the F List or Nadia
Yeah.
with Women in Control, I have previously, when something's happened, reached out to them to
Yes.
get their thoughts and guidance on how to. So I've kind of called it out in a way that not on socials where I could get sued or,
Yeah.
but just
Yeah.
finding that support network so I can get guidance on, I'm not sure how to deal with this. And then sometimes I've had people who've ended up calling that person out on my behalf without me I wasn't expecting it, but there was a situation that happened a few years ago and I reached out to someone in the industry and I was like, I'm not sure, but this comment feels a bit this, or I'm not sure if I'm misconstruing it. Was that a word? Yeah. And the person was like, no, this person, you're not, you're this, they're not being considerate or professional in how they're behaving. And so yeah, I think if I am in certain situations and it feels yeah, I can call this person out, I will do that, or a situation. But I think I'm just learning to sort of, yeah, make a list of who these people are and then getting advice, or just doing it in the most, hopefully the best way possible, so it's not going to be harmful to me or to others, basically.
That's great. And there's no main reporting body at the moment. I know we're bringing out the Creative Industries Independent Standards Authority, which is due to come out at the end of this year. So that will be the main body for the creative industries to report any of those issues too. So I think we are, again, making steps. But at the moment, we have organizations, but they have no power in the industry or no say, but the CISA will be able to have that and be able to make amends and changes in the industry to ensure that these things don't continue to happen, because it's not okay. And I'm sorry that you've had to see some of these issues as well. It's a bit of a shame.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what kind of, oh, sorry, I've just lost my track now. Have you ever suffered from discrimination and stigma? I know you've mentioned the misogyny. Obviously, being from your background that you're from, have you ever faced discrimination based on that?
Trying to think, like, through being queer and stuff.
Yeah, Virgin and all the other bits. Like, has anyone ever made any comments that you think are unacceptable? Or they might be indirect ones, because a lot of people say that it's more indirect than direct.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been judgments. I mean, this is sort of like going back to I I I mean, this is like not to do with being queer or neurodivergent, but one thing that came up in my mind, I was doing a gig, and sometimes I find if I'm the only woman on the lineup, I'm put first,
Yeah.
and it's sort of like that really annoys me. And I remember this male promoter, he joked and was like, "Oh, we're gonna put you first if that's all right." Because the last time we had a female artist, I'll make it clear that I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember word from word what,
It's
but this
fine.
is the gist of the
Yeah.
conversation. He was like, "Oh, there was a woman artist before, and she was pretty, and everyone liked her." And he was like, and I again because I can slow process and I'm not always sure because of my autism if someone's joking or not. I just sort of like paused, and then later on I just said to him, "Oh, were you joking when you said that? Like the reason why you're putting me on first?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I was joking." But even if he was joking, you wouldn't say that to a man. So, you don't need to say it to me.
Did that make you feel uncomfortable as well? Did that put you on the spot and make you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. It
I
did.
hope some of these promoters will listen and they will take notice eventually. You know, I just think we've just got to keep moving on and just keep, that's what I say, so fingers crossed. And obviously, before we go, because time's really flown by, do you want to share any major wins or successes with us before you go? And how can people connect with you, Miri, or go and find your music and your new single that's coming out? Tell us more.
Sure. So my website is miriofficial.com. That's MIRI. And that's got all my links. Socials, you can follow me on MIRI Official UK, MIRI. I'm usually most active on Instagram and Facebook. And in regards to some of my achievements, I mean, I'm really proud. I wanted to get into production music, like writing and stuff for TV and film libraries about a year ago. And in that year, I've managed to collaborate on 9 tracks and they've all been published. So it's as one's getting older, it's a way for me to invest in my pension, which is how it's been said. And also, this happened quite a while ago now, but I once had a couple of songs in a British film, and the actress from that in that film used to be in Skins and had quite a big following of young queer women or girls or women. And that was just such a fun and deep moment for me, because I remember watching her in Skins, and she had quite an emotional storyline as well, and being quite just really connecting, and then watching the film with my songs playing and then she was on it. And also it was kind of cool because a lot of her fans found my music. And again, I just will wrap up by saying that really highlights that if you have something that people are connecting to, if you don't have a platform, then no one's going to find you or know about it. And I always find, whether it's a performance event, whether it's through having those songs in a film, when I've had those platforms, it helps me to build up my fan base and my network. So us being given more platforms to showcase what we do is really important, not just because we're women, queer, neurodivergent, but because what we create is good.
Yeah, that's how it should be, isn't it? It should be music
Exactly.
but we also need to represent our story and our music at the same time, I think is what you're saying.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you, Miri. This has been an amazing podcast. Time's flown by, it always does when you're having fun. That 45 minutes has gone really quick. So yeah, thank you again for coming along, sharing your story with us, your views, and wishing you all the success in the world for what you've got coming up. Keep doing the amazing things you're doing, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.